everybody. Welcome to our podcast, What They Don't Tell You About Doing Business in ... I'm Lisa Shephard, and we also have
Elliot Zissman. Hello, nice to see everyone again.
Just a quick reminder, this is a podcast to talk about various different countries and what they don't tell you about doing business in them. We will be inviting various different people onto this podcast to focus on those different countries to help you and guide you on your growth journey with your business. My name is Lisa Shephard. I'm based in Miami, Florida. I've been here for 8 years. I have a business called AltusWorks that supports businesses expanding into the United States from a commercialization standpoint. And we also have Elliot.
Me, yes. Hi, yeah. I'm Elliot Zissman. My company is Phase 2, and we help businesses land into the UK market. We primarily do that through running their LinkedIn accounts. And I've been doing this kind of work for well over 20 years. I feel very, very old now. And today I'm very nervous because it's my turn to be interviewed about what they don't tell you to do, what they don't tell you about doing business in the UK.
Yes.
So, and in our wonderful way, we are completely unprepared with a non-script. So I don't know what you're going to ask me, but I'm sure it's been lovely and warm.
Of course. I mean, I think the UK is quite a complex country as much as it's not huge. It still has different complexities. And so when you're speaking to, clients, does it matter where they're entering the UK from in terms of where their business is currently based, in terms of what they need to think about with the UK?
Where they're entering from?
Yeah, so are they headquartered now and they want to get into the UK market?
Sure. I think sometimes there's going to be credibility based on the industry they're in. If you are a finance company headquartered in New York, then you're going to be, that gives you a bit of credibility. If you are a German car manufacturer, I'm for some reason thinking Australian swimwear manufacturer, but that kind of thing is probably going to give you a little bit of a leg up.
Yeah.
But one of the great things and about the UK, especially London, and we can talk at another stage about the difference in London and the rest of the UK, it's just that the sheer number of people who are from everywhere. I'm one of the rare people in my social circle that is from the UK, and people get confused that concept even exists. Really the answer is it doesn't really matter. But yeah, sure, if you're entering from a place, I don't know why I didn't think, haute couture from France, that kind of thing, it's going to give you some sort of leg up.
And culturally, so obviously you're dealing with mainly sort of LinkedIn outreach. How do you, what is your advice to these businesses that are trying to approach British companies through, things like LinkedIn? The British have a reputation, and we're both British, so we can say this, of a bit sort of stiff upper lip kind of, do you think that makes it a little bit more difficult to infiltrate the market through those methods?
It can be difficult. And I think, we are, as Brits, somewhat a cautious bunch of folk. And so it can take a little while to build up trust. Whether that be via LinkedIn or via face-to-face, if you are networking, it isn't as maybe transactional as it is over in the US. It's going to take time to build trust. You wouldn't go to a networking event in the UK and with exchange business cards within minutes. You've got to have a reasonable amount of conversation. The same would apply online as well. These kind of style of saying, hey, it's me. I'm not going to put anyone's accent on. Hey, this is me. This is how we help. Let's have a call. Let's have a call. Doesn't work as well as maybe it does in other territories around the world. People want to say, who are you? Let me take my time. Let me build some trust. Let me do my own research. And then I'll come, once I've got to know you, yeah, sure, we can have a chat if I've got a problem you can fix.
Yeah. And in terms of I know we will talk about it in more detail, perhaps on a different podcast, but talking about the different parts of the UK, I think a lot of people are not aware of, how the UK is structured in terms of, yes, London, is the capital, has the city, has the finance. But, if you're a tech company, does that really matter? Should you have a different approach if you're looking at Manchester or Newcastle or Scotland or Northern Ireland, or, how should you sort of plan for that?
I think that areas such as Manchester are growing significantly and have a fantastic social scene around them. There's parts of the country like Northern Ireland and the Northeast, which are less wealthy than, say, London. And as a result, there's some good government incentives if you're looking at opening a manufacturing plant or something like that. But I think what really surprises people is just how London-centric the UK is.
Right.
And I don't want to say all roads lead to London, but literally pretty much all railways do. And whilst the country is trying to get that changed, the fact remains is that the media, the media industry, the government, the tech sector, the finance sector, I could go on, are predominantly based in. That is the structure of the country. What it means is that if you want to have more meetings, get involved and be a part of that bigger picture conversation, London's where you need to be. On the other hand, it's a much more expensive option, similar to being based in New York or what have you. So, yeah, that's my opinion on how the country is structured from a business point of view.
And if I was selling, if I wanted to start to enter the UK market, at what point do you recommend that businesses actually have like physical presence in the UK? I mean, how easy is it to sell from abroad? And at what point do you typically see that sort of stopping?
Yeah, I think I think you can sell from abroad. Yeah, it's certainly from Europe, because accents don't matter as much. Now, there are people, and it's quite common to have, if you have a physical UK address, preferably in a prestigious area, it can make your business more credible. You go online, you Google, you see, oh, they've got a London office, in Mayfair, but there's virtual offices all across the world, and just have a WeWork or whatever you want in terms of a virtual office. It gives you that address. It does help. It can be £100 a year, right? Really, or something like that. It's not expensive. And I think that there will be definitely times in the process, the sales process, where it's super useful to be face to face. But the UK is, and certainly again London through Heathrow Airport, is incredibly and not expensive, well connected. It is, hop on a plane from anywhere across Europe, you're there in 2 hours, 3 hours, which for a big meeting, it's certainly recommended you do. So and the same I would say from the East Coast of the US, right? It's an overnight flight, you're there the next morning. I've worked with South African companies where we've flown people in overnight, they've done the presentation, flown them back later that afternoon, and they've been on their beach, the next morning. Depending on the time, right. So I would always say, if you depending on what you're selling, of course, and what you make or what you offer, you can do a fair bit from outside, but be prepared to hop on a plane, train, or automobile when you can. And certainly for, if you can schedule it around big events like the one we met at the business show in Excel. Yeah. There's 20,000 people there, right? Business people looking to have a conversation. Schedule other meetings around it. Be present. It always helps.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well.
And at what point? So I think there's a lot in the news about how regulated it is in the UK and in Europe, right? So there's a lot that suggests it's very difficult to do business in the UK because there's an awful lot of regulation. It's very difficult from a tax perspective. Looking at the new government, are they business friendly? Although today in the news they're talking about how they, really want to grow the UK. So if you're someone who sees the UK as an opportunity, do you think that there are any risks in terms of, when you're selling from remotely, at what point legally do you need to think about, okay, I have to set up a British company in the UK? I mean, I don't want to go into semantics, right? Because then you have to get a lawyer and a tax accountant or whatever. But generally speaking, because for the US, you hit a certain financial level, and really then the IRS is going to come after you. So how flexibility is there?
So there's a couple of questions there about regulation, about when the right time is, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry. I would one.
There is a perception that the whole of Europe is very highly regulated, and in some places and parts and industries, it certainly is. There's strong environmental protection laws. We don't drill, baby, drill. We're not allowed to do certain things. There's very strong data protection laws as well. You've got to look after your client's data as you would like them to look after yours. But the UK especially, I think, is the closest of all countries to that American model. And maybe you'd throw Estonia in there, but I'll let an Estonian person talk about Estonia in the future. It is pretty easy to set up a company. Yeah. It's pretty easy to start trading. Now, as I said, yes, if you're in financial services, the FCA regulates banks very closely. We don't want a bank failing and all that stuff that happened in 2008. And that's understandable. But I suspect a lot of the people we're talking to here aren't sitting there going, I was thinking of setting up a bank. If you are, I know someone that can help with the regulation. Yeah. If you are selling services from overseas, rather than goods being shipped in and all that kind of stuff, and I'll come back to that in a minute, you're fine. You can sell. You people can buy from a company in Serbia. I do, right? They're not in, are they regulated? Well, to the Serbian law, it's up to me as a human being. Can I buy from them? Do you need to have a business in the UK? Or a better question might be, when do you need to have a business in the UK? I think as you grow, you will want to hire some people. And as you grow, you want to have an actual office. And then you want some contracts of employment. And from there, you start to think, well, I need a company through which to hire these people. And this is where we do have employment rights and regulations. And yes, the current Labour government is probably a bit tougher than the previous Conservative government. But it's not France, it's not Sweden, it's not Germany. You can hire people, and if they're not what is right for the business or what's right for them, you can let them go. Yes, there's some hoops to jump through, of course, exactly as there should be. But this doesn't feel like a tough place to set up and do business for those that want. You just, in a very British way, I think you just have to act fair. You can't just fire someone. You don't employ people at will. You don't fire them at will. You have a contract. And that's, I think, a reasonable thing. You can't open a coal-fired power station or a bank and loan money to people or borrow or whatever without some form of regulation, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Yes, there's people that will 100% say, oh, there's too much burden and too much red tape and red tape and red tape. Sure, there's always going to be, to some degree. Let's see, over in the US, we're going to, Elon's going to cut it all back so that anyone can do what they want. You got to. I like to think that the UK has it about right. Is it perfect one way or the other? Absolutely not. Everyone will disagree. If it's down the middle, everyone will disagree with me. But I think it's about right for the things that matter. If you would just one other bit, I mentioned about selling services into the UK or from the UK. With goods, trading goods across borders is different. Brexit, we should mention that word.
Yeah, we should.
Brexit still confuses everyone. We still don't really know what the rules are. We don't know. If you are physically moving goods, you've probably got a better idea. But I'm sure it will change over time. Most of the people that I talk to in a lot of modern businesses are in the digital world, software, online services at all. So Brexit doesn't impact them too much.
But you did mention data earlier, and I was living in England when GDPR was launched in the UK, and that was great fun. But something that if you are not in Europe and you're a business, say an American business, a platform, you have data, and you want to start selling into the UK, what are the things you really need to think about when it comes to like that whole data side? Because I think that's really important. And it's, there are certain states, let's say in the US, where you have similar approaches to GDPR, but perhaps you have a technology that you're looking to launch. Before you do it, are the things that you need to take into consideration? Make sure it's compliant.
Well, I haven't had a GDPR chat for a long time, but yeah, okay. So,
I mean, not like in any detail, right? But I think it's important because I think
it is. Of course, you're absolutely right.
Especially in digital age, you think, oh, it's really like, here you go, you can have access to it, and they're like, well, hang on one second. If people in the UK can be accessing data, then there's a lot you need to think about.
So the first thing to say about GDPR is, as I'm sure you know, it is an EU legislation.
Yes.
And when we were inside the EU, then we adapted it as well, and in fact helped set the legal framework around it as a country. When we left the EU, they said immediately, the EU said, well, your data is not protected. You're not part of GDPR. And so it's literally in the same, we haven't changed the rules in 1 minute. So effectively, our data protection laws follow exactly the GDPR laws. So everything in the UK is the same as, followed for the rest of Europe. And my understanding is that a lot of the US companies, certainly the multinationals, certainly the cloud computing providers and things like that, are recognize that GDPR is pretty much a gold standard in terms of data protection. And whilst I think in other countries, maybe China and other places like that, there are fewer rules to adhere to, I think most people, if you are trading internationally already, you're going to be following inside your own country the right rules. And certainly if you're buying cloud computing services from an AWS, Google, Azure, Microsoft Azure, you're going to have data protection there. Effectively, it's about making sure that being fair and treating data fairly, and if you're going to hold data, you hold it for a specific reason. You tell people why you're holding their data, and you give people the opportunity to opt out and delete your data, which is what you would want people to do. So you don't have to. I remember stories when it was implemented of someone deleting their entire marketing database, or because we can't contact anyone anymore. No, there is a limit. The purpose of you're holding my email because the reason being you believe there's a reason we may have an opportunity to do business together. That is a perfectly valid reason to contact me, to hold my data. If I reply to you and say, okay, but I don't, can you delete me off your records? Then you should. Well, I mean, don't think that's too onerous a task. Yes, you should. I mean, why would I want to contact you anyway? So that's it. Just be fair and reasonable about that kind of thing. You know, hold as little data as possible. Don't try and ask 100 questions when people sign up. Like, do you really need their date of birth? Do you really need their gender?
Yeah.
I had to buy I had to get some pet insurance for the cats, and it wanted to know the cat's gender. And it was said, hello, cat. And it started talking to me as if I'm the cat.
Oh,
you know, the little sign-up form. It's like, so, what's your name? And I was like, okay, my name's Luna. Hi. And what is your gender? Are you male, female, or prefer not to say? And I'm like, do you really need...
That's hilarious. I think I prefer not to say, actually.
Yeah. You know, I would say it's good advice not just hold what you need and just if someone says, can you stop messaging me, give people an unsubscribe on the emails. That's pretty much, you know, that's a pretty good rule of thumb as well.
Yeah. And so my final question is similar to what you asked me in the last podcast, is what's the most, I guess, surprising thing that people find out when they come to the UK or enter the UK market that perhaps is not widely known? So what kind of takes people?
There's a few things, I'm sure. People find British people sometimes difficult to read emotionally. We are cautious. We downplay our opinions or emotions. If we say not bad, that can mean good. It could be not bad. If we say interesting, it could mean we're skeptical about something. It's really important to read between the lines and pay attention to the tone, the context. It is so difficult to get if you're in sales, getting a straightforward no is very difficult. And there's times when you obviously don't want no's, you want yeses, but you've got to read between the lines again. If you hear something like, I'll think about it, Lisa, does that mean that the person is going to think about it?
No. No.
So you need to ask some clarifying or I was trying to ask some get out questions. Is this of interest, or is it not right for you is it not correct for you right now? It gives, it's just not right now. I'll definitely get back to you.
Yeah.
Again, we know they're not going to.
Yeah.
So I think we are definitely the first thing I would say on that surprising thing, or maybe it surprises people or not, I don't know, is that we don't always say what we mean. I think that, what else would I say? I would say that it may surprise people to hear that tea is still a really important thing. Yes, we do drink coffee. But when you start a meeting, offering a cup of tea or coffee is really important. It's a bit of small talk, all of that kind of stuff. Except if it's after 4 o'clock. After 4 o'clock, maybe 5, you don't offer someone tea. You offer to go for a drink, a beer, a glass of wine. I think the amount that British people drink in a meeting, in a networking environment, it does surprise a lot of people from overseas. Not in an unpleasant way. It depends, but it's that's after 4 or 5 o'clock. That's how it that's just how business is done. Certainly London. And finally, the exception to that rule is if it's in December, when people will just go for lunch and stay there. So don't expect any replies, positive or negatives, in December. They're just drinking.
Love it. Brilliant. Well, I think that was super useful. Thank you. And we look forward to our next podcast with hopefully a guest.
There will be a guest. We will release information on that shortly.
Yeah.
Lisa, thank you. Thank you for everyone for listening and watching. And we look forward to speaking in soon. Thanks a lot.
Bye.